Hello everyone, this is my tissue culture lab. Today I'll show you how to make a few really cool little tissue culture plants for yourself at home in my home lab setup. I'll take you through the setup, the equipment, what you need, how you do it, and I look like a ghost. So today this ghost is going to teach you how to do some plant tissue culture. The premise of tissue culture is to take plant material, seeds, cuttings, whole plants, whatever tickles your fancy, and grow them in a nutrient medium. That's this gel here at the bottom. And through manipulation of the hormones and the nutrients in the medium, you can get them to multiply, you can grow them up much faster, you can make them do all sorts of weird things. You get a lovely little jar like this. These are some sundews, some Drosera gunneriana. So I'll take you through the process of how I make the medium, how I transfer, etc, etc. So, let's get started. Welcome to my lab, officially. Yes, this is also my garage. It's really not ideal for doing sterile work, but here we are. So for tissue culture, you have three main areas. You have your prep area, where you make all your medium. So that involves mixing your nutrients, adding hormones, adding your gels, making sure the pH is correct, so on and so forth. Once you've prepared your medium and all your components, stick it over here into your trusty pressure cooker, or if you're rich, you can get an autoclave. I don't have 80,000 Rand or about $5,000 for one, so I stick with this little cheapie. And when everything is nice and sterile, you take it over to your laminar flow hood. This is where all the magic happens, where you do your sterile work. There's a HEPA filter at the back and blowers in the cabinet. Blows nice, clean air through the whole time. So everything you do in here is sterile, but you need to work carefully to make sure it stays that way. And the fourth thing, there's actually four, is a grow area. So at the back, I have racks with lights. That's where you keep all the cultures and maintain them. The lights are mainly just to regulate the photoperiod in the plants. You give them sugar in the medium to, stay alive, because they're not really photosynthesizing in there. You just want them to have their normal day-night cycle. So that's where they grow. You just leave them there for a while, and poof, you have little plants. So step one, you got to make media. So let's move over to the prep area and show you what you need to make the delicious, juicy tissue culture media. Not recommended for human consumption though. The first thing you need is a jug. This is a jug, a measuring jug. Any old jug will do really, so long as you don't use it for food as well. Everything I use in the lab is just for the lab, because you're working with synthetic hormones. Sometimes you work with antibiotics or fungicides, so you don't really want interacting with a human food. So step one, we need to get some water. Distilled water or reverse osmosis water is the go-to. I have a nice little jug here. I'll take my beaker and off we go. Slowly and awkwardly, you fill your container. Today I'm going to make 500 milliliters of medium. Ta-da! Next thing you need to pull out is your scale. This is a standard little multi-decimal weed scale. I mean, they sell it at the hydroponic shop, but we all know it's really the weed shop. This one goes up to 50 grams. So we'll start with the sugar. That is the bulk ingredient in tissue culture medium. So you just need to go grab a weighing boat. This is a paper weighing boat that they use in labs. Stick them on there and scale it out. And now I hear you wondering, sugar? I've never heard of such a thing as lab sugar. And that's right. I just use normal packet sugar from the store. Works just fine for me and my coffee, and it works just fine for the plants in their medium. So the general going rate for this is between 20 to 30 grams per liter. I'm making half a liter, so 30 grams divided by 2 is 15. Most tissue culture protocols work on a liter basis. So I'll get 15 grams. It's important to be relatively accurate with this. It doesn't have to be 15 on the dot. I've got 15.003 because I'm good like that. Bring your jug back over and tip them in there. It's advisable to use a clean weighing boat for each step. So now we're working on the next bit, which is the nutrients. The main commonly used tissue culture nutrient is Mirishigi and Skoog medium. This is a basis. Bless Mirishigi and Skoog for developing it. You can use this for most plants. It's a little bit expensive, but it's well worth it. For the carnivorous plants I'm working on today, you want quarter strength. So a typical strength is 4.4 grams a liter. This is a nice new batch. So pull them open. So 4.4 divided by 4 is 1.1. That's quarter strength. But remember, we have half a litre. So we're going to have about 0.55 grams. My spoon is too big to fit, so I'll get this done off camera. And that is the only two solid components I'm adding to my medium. The third thing I'm going to add just for fun is Kathon. This is plant preservative medium, except a fraction of the price. It's exactly the same thing, and if dosed accordingly, it works well. It's an important point to mention. When you're working with chemicals, it's generally a good idea to wear gloves. So do as I say, not as I do. And I'm definitely going to need them for the next step. So once you have everything mixed in here, just give it a good, proper, thorough stir until all the sugar has dissolved and all the salts. It is now mostly dissolved. I forgot to mention, plant preservative medium, or Kathon, is a biocide, the idea of which is to help inhibit contamination in your medium. It doesn't save you from stupid mistakes, but it certainly does help. So now to pull the camera up a little bit, our next step is to check the pH of the medium. This is a very important step, as gelling agents, especially agar, don't set if the pH is incorrect, the plants don't grow nicely. So the pH of this mix is fairly high. I'm going to grab, oh, you cannot see, 7.5 and declining. You want to leave it for a little bit, just to settle. Your target pH should be somewhere around 5.8 to 6 before autoclaving. It typically drops a little bit during sterilization. So while I'm donning gloves, I will grab the next component. Now I have my fancy gloves on to protect myself. The pH is settled at about 7.1, so we need to bring it down a bit. For that, my lovely bottle of pH Down. This is just a different solution. If I can find it here on the shelf. I bought some pH Down solution from the same hydroponic shop. This is acidic, but it is extremely strong. So I diluted it 1 part of pH Down to 9 parts water for 10%. So I'm going to stick it down here. Take your trusty syringe. And you really want to be careful with it. 1 drop at a time, especially on such a small volume, and give it a stir. It already dropped down to 6.9, 6.8. And you want to let it settle for a little bit. If you get too overeager, you shoot it down, and you have to get your pH up to bring it back up again. That's safe to say we can add another drop and keep stirring. You really want to be patient here. It's not worth wasting your time. So if you really mess with the pH too much, then your buffering is ruined. There you go. You see it's still going down. 6.3, 6.2. At this point, I'd be inclined to leave it alone, as it does drop a little bit. And I'm using Gelrite as my gelling agent, which is not as sensitive to the pH as other gelling agents like agar. 6.1. That's good enough to start with. I'll usually drop 0.1 or 0.2 during the pressure cooking process. When you finish pHing, you want to rinse your probe nicely, so grab a little container, fill it with water. Once you're done pHing, I'm going to grab a little bit of clean water, distilled or reverse osmosis again. Take your probe out and give it a good rinse. It's important to do this since our nutrient solution is full of sugar nutrients and easily gets contaminated. If you leave this water a few days, you'll see some mold growing. So you want to throw this out after use, clean your probe nicely, and close it up. If you have pH maintenance solution, now is a good time to use it. Put this away. Style medium is about 90% done. The last part is just to get it into an autoclavable container. So for this, I use Duran bottles. They're not that expensive. I paid just over 100 Rand each for these. It's only a few dollars US. These are borosilicate glass, so I can go through the pressure cooker without a problem. So I stick them down there. Grab your radiant media and pour it all the way in. Right now, this media is in a liquid state, and for some things you can use it just as is, but we want solid medium. So I'm going to bring back Mr. Scale, another weighing boat, and my good friend Gelrite. This is a bacterial polymer, really nice, sets as a nice clear gel. And it's very strong. You only want to use about 2 grams per liter of the stuff, up to 2.5 grams if you want a really solid gel. So I'm going to weigh out again on the gram here. And the reason I add it in the bottle is because this hydrates very nicely, but it doesn't disperse well until it's heated. So sometimes I'll make 2 liters of media in a bigger container, but if you add the gel right, it's all going to sink to the bottom, and then you're not going to have a good gel set when you pour your medium later. So make the liquid component first, get my gel right ready, and you can just gently pour it in there. I'll put the lid on. And very important, when you're putting containers with liquid into your pressure cooker or autoclave, not to tighten them completely. This still has a little bit of play. This just helps the pressure penetrate the container and sterilize it, and also helps stop your bottle from exploding. So next, we've got to load up our pressure cooker and get our other containers ready. The container of choice for my tissue culture is clear polypropylene plastic containers. These are the kind of clip seal ones that you get crushed garlic and similar in. If you're dubious about what your plastic is, have a little look on the bottom here. This one is number 5, polypropylene. This one can survive in the pressure cooker. Most other things cannot. However, unlike glass containers, you cannot put media in this and pressure cook it. If you have old baby food jars or console jars, those work really well for tissue culture, but these you just cannot put medium in. Glass ones, you can heat your media and mix it nicely and pour it, and then pressure cook it. And I find it more space efficient to use these, because you can put a stack in the pressure cooker like this, put a stack of lids in, and you can do quite a few more at once. For the pressure cooking step, I use oven bags. You can also use tin foil and wrap it. However, that is a little bit fiddly, and you have to use quite a lot of it. So these oven bags are quite nice, they're cheap, and they last quite a few cycles. So you simply open it up at the top, stick them in there, and fold it over loosely. You don't want to seal it completely, because the magic in the pressure cooker happens when steam can get into the bag and sterilize everything nicely. My tools of choice are just curved forceps. I'll get these from an aquarium store. Curved scissors. You can also use a scalpel. I just like these because you can snip around it like that. And then some kind of little metal guy to use as a tool rest in the laminar flow hood. You'll see this later. If you have them available, Falcon tubes, 50 milliliter tubes or something similar, are great to put your tools in the oven bags, because the bottom here stops them from poking their way out. It's a very handy way to do it. Let's take the bag, fold it over gently. You have a nice pack of tools ready to be sterilized. So here's my pressure cooker. This sterilizes things. So the first thing you want to do is put some water in the bottom. This is very important. If you run it dry, you're going to melt and burn everything. The sterilizing comes from pressurized steam that gets into all the nooks and crannies. So you want to stick in your medium, a few containers, some lids, and your tools. Since today I'm just doing replating directly from container to container, I'm not going to use any cutting surface. For that, I normally use paper plates, if I can find them. So normally I would use paper plates. I'd also put them in an oven bag and just kind of stick them here on top. But we're not doing that today. We're just doing some standard replates. So that you can lock up your pressure cooker. Make sure it's set to the right position to seal. Otherwise, steam is just going to come out the top the whole time. It's not going to do anything. This is a nifty little electric pressure cooker, or digital pressure cooker. So how I run this is you have to set this up manually. I put in the high pressure setting. You set the time to 25 minutes. The normal pressure or autoclave, it's 21. Since this doesn't reach as high a pressure, right at 25. So you hit start, it's going to reach pressure now. It's going to heat up, it's going to steam everything nicely in there to sterilize it. So while that's happening, let's get our laminar flow ready and I'll show you how it works. So this is the inside of my laminar flow hood. I'm going to turn it on, have controls at the top, variable speed, etc. You can use a still air box for tissue culture, but this is simply miles better if you can find one. I bought this secondhand from an old guy that had retired from the hobby. So I bought the unit with the filter in and the blowers in the back for 2,000 Rand. It's just over $100 to buy. Even just a new filter is about 14,000 Rand, almost $1,000. So once you've turned it on, especially if you haven't used it in a while, it's important to clean the surface. To that end, I have a bottle of 70% ethanol alcohol. This is a very handy thing to have and one of the must-haves, a spray bottle. And to start, simply grab it, give a nice little hose down of your working surface, wipe it all down nicely. This cleans it, it doesn't sterilize fully. So if there's any spores or so on, it's not quite going to kill it. So we're just trying to get a clean work surface, not necessarily completely sterile. And you must keep that in mind when you're working in here. If something touches a bench, it's probably not sterile anymore. The other thing I have here in the corner that I must also switch on ahead of use is a glass bead sterilizer. This is what you use while you're working to keep your tools clean. So between every plate of plants, you'll stick them in there. There's glass beads that get hot, hence the name glass bead sterilizer. Another second-hand purchase. You can also use a flame with alcohol. I don't like doing that because it's very easy to set your hands on fire. So while you're working, you spray your hands a lot, you cover in alcohol, you usually do your wrists, your arms as well. And if you just happen to turn your tool the wrong way and burning ethanol runs down, you set yourself on fire, which is not a great situation for anyone. So glass bead sterilizer is much better. If you have the option, you can use UV as well. I'll show you how mine works. There's an old adage of measure twice, cut once, and that is true in this instance. A UV bulb is great for sterilizing your surface before you start working, but mine is just slightly too long. So I made a manifold to run it on the outside. I'm going to turn the light off to show you how it works. There you go, blue UV. You can leave that running for about an hour to really clean your surface. But whatever you do not look at it. It will burn your eyes, it will burn your skin. Not a great time for anyone involved. So always, 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 if you have one, make sure it's turned off before you use it. Mine, luckily, I can fold it out the way. There's absolutely no chance I can work with it on. And I keep a nice white light for working under. You can also use a yellow light if it's easier on your eyes. It's just good to be able to see what you're doing all the time. So now we have to wait for our pressure cooker to finish. So see you in about 45 minutes. Hey, here we are. About 45 minutes later, pressure cooker's done. There's a keep warm function. You can turn it off now. So that's just using power. And you want to very gently vent it if it still has pressure. If it doesn't auto release, you can just kind of leave it for a while. You do not want to vent it too quickly because that quick pressure change can cause your media to boil over. Not really a good idea. So I've cracked it just ever so slightly on the top of the pressure cooker. It's got a very light hiss to it, and I'm going to leave it till it's completely degassed before I open it. It's under high pressure. If you try and force it open now, it might just explode in your face, and we don't want that. So see you in a few more minutes. Now it is ready. Behold. Steam. At this point, I just let it cool down for a few minutes, and then you can start pulling everything out. The best tool for the job, some little grabby oven mitts. This stuff is hot. That was over 100 degrees just a few minutes ago, so it's still going to be cooking a little bit. So this is easy to grab stuff without boiling your fingers off, and you look kind of like a cool dinosaur while doing it. See, this is still kind of bubbling, kind of boiling. Very, very hot. Do not touchy, it make owie. So now we bring ourselves to the fun part of actually getting into work behind the bench. So these have just come out of the pressure cooker, they're still very hot. And a good rule of thumb, everything that comes into the laminar fluid needs a little bit of alcohol. So you're going to take your trusty spray bottle, spray your gloves and your hands a little bit. This can dry out your skin if you really go too hard with it. It's also a good idea to wash your hands and everything a bit first, just for cleaner the better. Take your bottle, everything that comes in here, just give it a little spritz. Get it nice and clean. Now we can carefully begin to unpack everything. We'll start with the tools. It's important, anything that's going to be touching plants, you want to be clean. Some tools, you just want to grab them at the back. That is very hot still. Remember to let them cool down a bit before you start touching them. Here's the rack. Stick them down over there. Stick your tool on there so the end is not touching the bench, and off you go. It's it's good to have more than one set of tools to go at any one time, because you need to let them cool out a bit between glass bead sterilizing as well. And when it's done, just take this out of the cabinet, otherwise it's just clutter and makes it annoying to work in here. After it comes out, open more alcohol. Good to go. Next, we need containers. So here's our tubs that we sterilized in the pressure cooker. Put them in the plastic. I put them in upside down, so that when you stick your hand in, it's not on top of where the media goes. Pull it out like this. Your magical containers, and the insides are clean. So inside there, you want to keep it sterile as humanly possible. So I'm going to take that out as well. This top jar is a sacrifice, because I don't have a kind of double boiling setup on the cover on the bottom of the pressure cooker, so things touch the bottom. So these bottom ones get a little bit deformed. This one actually looks okay, so I'm going to use it for today. It has sacrifice written on the bottom, so I don't keep wasting jars. This is okay, so I'm carefully going to pack them out. And a good rule of thumb while you're doing tissue culture is to keep your hands from getting over anything that's supposed to be sterile. So the way that it was visualized for me, that's really stuck with me, is imagine your hands always have water dripping off them. There's water coming off everywhere. You don't want that water to get inside that jar. So you don't really want to, stick your hand over it. So if you're working, it's good to work sideways. Don't reach over things. So always lay things out in a way that works nicely for you. I keep my tools over here, I can pick them up, easily put them in the glass bead sterilizer, pull them out. So you can kind of do two things here. You can either wait a long time for your media to cool down enough to handle by hand, but I don't like doing that. So I'm going to grab my little grabbies, give them a little spritz as well, keep them nice and clean. This is where you take your bottle of media, very carefully turn it open, this is still hot, and you start pouring your media. You just want a thin film, you don't need more than 1 centimeter really. So take your container and carefully pour some media in. You'll see it's very steamy already, so I like to leave them open to cool off. If you put the lid on now, you get a lot of condensation, it builds up on the media. That's not great for the plants, but just put it to the side there to cool. Now we just rinse and repeat. If you want to make a lot of containers and keep them in the cabinet, this is a nice way to do it. You have your stack that comes out of the oven bag, and you take one sterile lid and put it on top to protect the top, and you can leave it inside your cabinet when it's switched off, and it stays relatively clean. So I'm going to pull these off now and put them to the side, and I can pour a few more containers. So there we go, I have 9 clean containers. Everything else you're not using, get it out the cabinet as soon as possible, just so you're not taking up space. The lids I'm going to leave here until everything is cooled off, and I can lid them and start working on the plants. So, welcome back. It's a little while later. Our media has now finished setting. A little bit more ethanol in the hands to get everything ready. So here we have a tub with finished media. You can see it is set into a nice solid layer here at the bottom. Gel-right is super clear, agar is a little bit cloudier. So what I'm going to do before I start pulling out the plants is get lids on. So I have my stack of lids from earlier. Same story as before, open it up. I put these upright, and I let the bottom one be a sacrificial unit. So I've got a stack here, plastic, get out the way. Spray in. And I'll just take each lid one by one, carefully peel it off the top, and place it down. I want to start moving right for left, just make sure I don't have my hands over any open jars, and also kind of top to bottom. It's not necessarily the end of the world if your hand gets over a jar, it does just increase your risk of contamination. And everything we do is just trying to minimize the contamination, because that Really, it ruins a container of plants. You're wasting your time and your effort and your materials and making your media if you're just gonna get it contaminated. So try and be careful all the time. Usually when I've done this, I like to stack them just so they take up a bit less real estate on the bench. The other thing I brought into the jar now is some ethanol. This is again 70% in a glass jar, very important because if this catches fire in a plastic container, it's going to be a bit of a problem. Whereas if you have the lid, you can just cap it on. That kills it. Between plates, you can wish them your tools in here. This gets all the gel and plant material off to make sure it doesn't burn up in your ethanol. And you want to leave it in there for about 10 seconds to clean nicely. So what I got here now is some Utricularia babui and some Drosera gunniana from the intro. I'm mainly aiming to replate these today, just so they get more nutrients and they can start growing fast. You want to do this every kind of 8 to 12 weeks. If you leave it too long, the plants start getting senescent because they run through all the nutrients and then they start looking bad. They don't plant out so nicely. So we'll start with this. So what I like to do is on these jars, they have seals. So if it's a new jar, break the seal off. This for future. Pull another jar to the side and carefully peel the lid off. Keep it upside down. You don't want to touch the inside of the lid. You also don't want the inside of the lid to be touching the ground, the work surface, which isn't completely sterile. So just pop them up there. Just like that. So now you have an open jar full of very cute little plants. I take my next jar and I want to replay them to the same story. Peel off the lid, put it to the side. Now's the fun part. Take your forceps. Longer ones are a bit better. You also don't want to be too long that you're miles away. Too short and your fingers will be in the jar. I like to turn it sideways. You grab on your plants, like so. Just carefully stick them in there. You want to stick them about as deep as you can, just so they have maximum contact with the gel, so they get the most nutrients. And you just repeat this. It's good not to crowd them too much, so they have enough space. Also, you want to get a good few plants in each jar, otherwise you're again wasting your time and space. Turning it sideways is a good way to help keep your hands on the jar. And there you've got a nice full jar of new gunniana. These are going to grow very quickly. So now that I've filled that jar, I rinse off my tools, put in the glass bead sterilizer for a little bit. Close this one, make sure you clamp it shut. Usually I write the label on, and at that point this first tool is done. Put it down to cool down. My other tool, do the same thing for the next jar. So carefully peel the lid off and transfer it. It's even quicker if you do it this way. You just have to have tweezers long enough to make sure your hand is not going over the jar. And Lawrence. And there you have another nice jar, Drosera gunniana. So these should grow a lot faster on fresh media. You can take that lid, be careful not to touch it back, flip them over, stick them right in there, close it down, and pull this out to cool down. The old jar you can close, you can put to the side. This needs to be washed, that I can reuse it later. Next we have Utricularia babui. This is a lot more grassy. It's not quite like the gunniana in that it's not really individual plants, it's more of a mat. So I want to pull this apart a bit. So let me show you how to do it. Nice full jar, lots of plants. So I'll take both pairs of my forceps. If you have a cutting surface like a paper plate, it's easy to pull the whole thing out and work on it there. I'm just going to work in the jar, so angle it like this, be able to get into the jar better. So working carefully, I can pull off individual pieces and plant a few into new jars to seed them. Always make sure you never hold the tools in the area that will get into the jar. It just helps maintain that nice sterility. So there you go. Quick and easy start to getting into plant tissue culture. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. And until then, happy growing and good luck doing your own tissue cultures.